betrayal, prostitution, murder, police cover-ups, revenge. This is the story of Lady Lace. Growing up in southern Florida during the 70s was the highlight of Laura and Valerie's life. Their grandmother was the founder of a successful toy company. Yes, their family had money. Unfortunately, their mother passed away, giving birth to Valerie, the younger sister. Years later, their father passed away from a heart attack, so their grandmother raised them. Laura, being the older sister, was very disciplined and very smart. She was reserved and had very small friend group. She had to be a mother figure to Valerie, so she grew up fast. Valerie was the wild child. She was loud, outgoing, and a free spirit. In high school, she was a cheerleader and dated the quarterback of the football team. Yes, very cliche. Valerie was voted prom queen, and when Laura was in high school, she was voted most likely to write a book. Very different personalities, but they were very close. Once both girls were out of high school, they just lived off their grandmother. Valerie's boyfriend moved away for college, so they broke up. Laura never really dated. A few years had gone past, and the girls were now 21 and 23. On a rainy day in June of 1976, Laura and Valerie was coming home from lunch with their friends when the housekeeper met them at the door. She told them their grandmother was rushed to the hospital because she had a bad fall and hit her head. The girls ran out the house, rushed to the hospital, just in time to say goodbye. They had no one else in the world. It was just the two of them. With the devastation of losing their grandmother, they still had to figure out a way to run the company that their grandmother left for them in her will. Laura and Valerie took over the business, but it only lasted a few months until they decided to sell it. Their hearts just wasn't in it after their grandmother had passed. Both having millions from selling the company, they decided to start their own individual companies. Laura saw the rise in technology, so she invested in computers. She went to college to get a business degree in finances and marketing. Valerie decided to go into business also. She knew a long-term friend that she met in high school, and his name was Paul. Paul came from a less fortunate background. His family had no money when they were living in New York, so they decided to move to Florida because the father had got a job offer, which was his dream job. They were able to start a new and better life. Valerie met up with Paul and asked him would he love to start a fashion company with her. Paul stood out for his fashion and the way he spoke. He was different, but he was amazing. He worked at a high-end clothing company and knew everyone you needed to know in the industry. He went to these lavish parties and just smelled like money. Paul agreed to start the company with Valerie. Within a year of their business, it was thriving. Paul was always invited to these mansion parties and fashion shows. And of course, Valerie tagged along. Being part of this inner circle meant you had to try things you normally wouldn't. Lace drinks and popping pills. Valerie became addicted quick. Paul was a functioning addict, and you would never know outside looking in. Valerie was spending money daily to support her habit. Laura noticed the difference in her and tried to see what was going on. Valerie tried to cover it up as best as possible. Paul found out that Valerie was using a company's money to support her habit. He told her to stop or else. She paid him no attention. Paul spoke both English and Spanish. Valerie did not. Even though she lived in Florida, she never learned Spanish. He decided to have his lawyer write up a contract in Spanish to relieve Valerie from her share of the company. She trusted Paul and signed the contract with no problem. A few months had passed and her assistant told her a check bounced. Valerie said, "That's impossible. I'm a millionaire." She called the bank to see what was going on and found out her name was no longer on the account. She got in her car and sped to Paul's home. He wasn't there. She went to the office and he was there in a meeting. Like everything was okay. She barged in and started yelling at Paul. He laughed at her. "My love, you signed the contract. You get nothing." She charged after him and yelled for help. The gentleman in the meeting got her off of him. She was devastated. She could barely breathe. Her hard work was all gone. Her life was gone. When she arrived home, she started drinking and thinking. She couldn't call Laura. Laura would freak out and give her the "you can't trust anyone" speech. Thinking of everything she's done in life and everything she's been through, she realized she couldn't just give up. Being at those parties and seeing money get thrown to the models, the waitresses, even seeing some women walk around half naked and going into these different rooms with these rich and wealthy men. She needed to keep up her lifestyle and needed to do it quickly. She decided to become what you would call a call girl, not a prostitute. She created a phone book ad to get men with money. She continued to go to these matching parties and would give them her flyer and walk around seductively to get them interested. She offered any fantasy you wanted, but you had to pay. Her name was Vixen Val. She worked from home. She wanted to be able to secretly record the services she was providing for the men. Most of them had wives or held powerful positions in the city. She never wanted to be fooled again. One day, a judge requested her services, but wanted to pay her less than what they agreed. She said, "Okay, but never again." Of course, he tried it again. She tried to stop him from leaving, but he slapped her and left. She came up with a plan to print out still shots from her video of him in not so pleasing positions. She delivered him to his office with the message saying, "Meet me at the party tonight." She walked up to him and told him he'll be paying her money every week until she said so, or the photos would be in the papers everywhere. He had no choice but to agree. She continued her services to more wealthy men. Valerie met a very well-kept lawyer at a bar one night. His name was Michael. She slipped him her flyer and left. He booked her services and kept coming back. They had a weird bond, but it had extra love and care with it. After her services one night, he tried to say he was low on cash. She let him slide. Time after time, he started paying less and tried not to pay at all one day. Valerie told him he would regret it if he kept paying her less and less. He looked at her, laughed, and left. She printed out pictures of him tied up and performing certain acts. She took them to him and threatened to expose him. He came up with a plan of his own. He came to her house with flowers and tried to apologize. Vixen Val had enough of crap from men and told him she was done. He was furious. He walked up to her, gently grabbed her by the throat, and said, "You don't mean that," and kissed her gently on the lips. She said, "You'll see soon enough." Michael started tightening his grip, choking the life out of her. He released her and her body fell to the ground. He panicked and he started wiping everything off and ran out the house. He didn't know she had a camera recording the whole thing. Laura hadn't heard from Valerie for a couple of days and decided to go check up on her. She found her lifeless body and called 911. Laura was beyond heartbroken. She had to live without her sister and then try to plan a funeral for her. After the funeral was over, Laura finally went to Valerie's home to clean it out. Laura found a cabinet full of VHSs with names and occupations on them. She then found a hidden camera and took the VHS out and played it in the VCR. She couldn't believe her eyes. The men, the acts. She almost passed out. How could her sister stoop to this level? Why did she do this? Filled with confusion and denial, Laura broke down in tears. After trying to get herself together, she realized she could fast forward the tape to the day her sister was killed. Witnessing her sister's death on screen was traumatizing, but she couldn't get her sister's killer face out of her head. He was tall, muscular, with long dark hair and sideburns. They were perfectly trimmed, along with his mustache. She jumped up and ran to her car, speeding to the police station. "I have proof," she yelled. "I have proof. My sister recorded her killer." The detective on her case ran to her. "I'll take it and see what's going on." Laura waited while the detective reviewed the tape. He was shocked at what he was watching. He knew some of the men in the videos. Once he got to the murder, he stood up and froze. The killer was his brother. How could he cover this up for him? What did Laura know? Did she recognize him? What did she see? He took a deep breath and walked out calmly. He said to Laura, "Ma'am, I reviewed the evidence, and I'll let you know what we come up with soon." Laura was stuck. "That's it? Go arrest the man now. He murdered my sister. She's gone because of him." The detective told her, "Calm down, ma'am. We'll make an arrest soon." Laura went home shaking and in tears. She received a phone call the next morning. "Ma'am, we have someone in custody." She jumped up and sped to the police station. She wanted to see this man's face. She wanted to see the scumbag who took her sister's life. Once she got there, she closed her eyes before they allowed the man into another room. Standing behind a double glass window, she was shaking. She was nervous. The detective said, "That's him, ma'am." She slowly opened her eyes. That is not the man from the video. That is not my sister's killer. The detective told her, ma'am, yes it is. It's the man from the video. Laura said, no, he looks nothing like him. It's not him. Go look at the tape again. Go now. Laura was furious and confused. How could they arrest the wrong man? The detective brought a TV and VCR into the room. Ma'am, unfortunately, the video was damaged in custody. We can't get a clear look at the suspect. Laura looked at the detective. What do you mean, damaged? Laura was unaware that the detective needed to protect his brother, Michael. He watched the video right before you could see his brother's face, took the VHS out, and scratched the film with his keys. Fortunately for the detective, the innocent man that he was framing was one of Vixen Val's clients, and he admitted to knowing her. That's all the judge needed to hear in court. Laura went to the judge begging and pleaded with him. That's the wrong man. He's not my sister's killer. Since prostitution was high around this time, no one cared to actually find killers who killed the girls that were on the streets. They were trash to them. It was her word against the detectives. The judge ruled in the detective's favor. Laura was so frustrated, tired, hurt, sad. She was pissed off. Everything you could possibly feel all at once. She went home feeling defeated. The video showed the killer actually committing a crime. How could this have happened? Someone did this. It was no coincidence. I have to find the man myself, she thought. Laura sketched up a picture of the man and showed it to everyone she knew. It took weeks, but someone finally was willing to let her know who he was. She found out his name was Michael, and he was a known lawyer. Laura had to figure out how she could get him to confess to killing Valerie. Word around town was that he cheated on his wife very often. Laura realized she had to mimic Valerie's lifestyle in order to trap him. She created an ad herself. Her slogan was, Lady Lace, all your fantasies in one place. She had to offer any type of services in order to attract him. She offered everything from sexy massages to role-playing. Everything about this was out of her comfort zone, but she had to do it for her sister. She set up a secret room in her home, and she bought the sexiest lace she could find. She waited patiently for someone to contact her. Finally, someone booked her services. He wanted BDSM. Laura was shaking with nerves. She had no idea what to do. But it was too late to back out of it. There was a knock at the door. She took a deep breath and opened the door slowly. There was a short man with no hair and partly naked already, just standing there waiting. She welcomed him in. He said, "Let's get started, babe." She set him in a chair and tied him up. She rubbed baby oil on his body and whipped his chest. He gave her the look of pain but satisfaction. She couldn't handle him looking at her no longer, so she decided to blindfold him. She started to feel uncomfortable with the whole thing. She almost gave up until she started thinking of Valerie. She told the man, "Stand up." She pushed him on the bed and started whipping him all over. She loved the feeling of getting her frustration and anger out. Images of her sister Valerie kept popping up in her mind. She whipped him harder and harder. She zoned out to the point where she couldn't hear his screams. She couldn't see the blood splattering all over the walls. After a while, she calmed down and let out a huge sigh of relief. She looked down at the man and noticed he wasn't moving. She shook him, slapped him on the face. "Wake up," she screamed. "Wake up!" She panicked and backed slowly away from the body. What was she to do next? She paced around in thought. At last, she remembered an old friend who works at the cemetery facility. She looked him up in the phone book. She called him up. He remembered her, and he remembered she came from money. She begged him to help. "Please help me get rid of this body and his vehicle." He agreed, but it was going to cost her. He arrived at her home, saw the room, and the body laying on the bed. He gave her some disposable clothes, and she helped him carry the body out of the house in plastic. He told her he would burn the body and come back to get rid of the vehicle. Once he returned, he got into the man's vehicle, and Laura drove hers. They went into the woods and left the vehicle there under a bunch of branches and leaves. She went back home to clean up. It was 6 a.m., and just as she finished, there was a knock at the door. It startled her. Who could it be? Was it a neighbor who heard the screams, or was it the police? The knock got louder and louder. She could no longer ignore the knocks. She looked around and made sure everything was okay and everything was put back in place. She fixed herself up and walked to the front door. Every step was terrifying. She slowly opened the door. She looked up, and it was